The first time someone took a biscuit tin into a haunted manor, they probably weren't thinking about ghosts. They were thinking about the fog, the damp, the long walk back to the station. Victorian ghost hunting wasn't a quick evening hobby. It was a full-on expedition. Trains ran late, lanterns went out, mediums had to be cajoled with sweets, and séances, they could stretch until dawn, particularly if the spirit refused to show up before your third cup of tea. So you've brought supplies: gloves, notebook, flask, and of course the biscuit tin, a proper one with a snap-tight lid that keeps the crunch safe. Shortbread, perhaps, something that pairs well with silence and candlelight. It sits beside you now, catching the glow from the hearth, a comforting link to the world of the living while your companions attempt to contact the dead. The room around you smells faintly of old wood, paraffin, and lavender sachets. Heavy curtains dampen the wind's whistle outside. The medium, a pale man with elaborate sideburns, clears his throat and begins to hum. It's supposed to raise the vibrational field. You're unsure whether to hum along or help yourself to a biscuit. You wonder who started this strange tradition, eating between dimensions. Historians still argue whether the earliest ghost clubs were more about science, theater, or polite society trying to feel something in a world suddenly filled with telegrams and train whistles. What do they agree on? Tea was always served. And where there's tea, there are biscuits. Even back in 1862, when the Ghost Club of London first formed, members met in drawing rooms over refreshments before attempting to speak with spirits. It sounds civilized, almost quaint, until you remember these were the same people who once tried to weigh a soul using a scale made for livestock. Still, there's something about the biscuit that feels grounding. It doesn't claim to reveal past lives or predict futures. It simply waits, crunchy and sweet, reminding you of a world where ovens worked and mothers fussed and ghosts did not lurk in coat closets. Your own biscuit tin is well loved. Painted roses on the lid, a small dent in the corner from last month's ill-advised sprint from the haunted pottery kiln. You try not to think about that night, the shattered whisper behind your ear, the flicker of movement by the glazes. You bit into a ginger snap to calm yourself, and in that moment you swore you heard someone chewing back. You reach for a biscuit now, fingers brushing the tin's edge just as the room temperature drops 2 degrees. The medium hisses, "A presence is here." Of course it is. You chew carefully. There's a strange etiquette at these gatherings. No loud crunching, no dipping unless it's a designated tea break, and never, under any circumstances, eat the last custard cream unless you're prepared to bargain with a ghost for forgiveness. And don't think for a second this is just superstition. In 1898, a spiritualist in Brighton claimed that her connection to the beyond sharpened dramatically after a particularly buttery digestive. She insisted it oiled the soul's antenna. That theory didn't make it into any official publications, but it did earn her a lifetime supply from a grateful bakery. Tonight's haunting is supposed to involve a footman who died mysteriously during a winter ball. You glance toward the grand staircase. Somewhere beyond those velvet shadows, a phantom might be watching, judging your biscuit choice. You feel strangely self-conscious. Should have brought hobnobs. A whisper passes through the séance circle. Ask it if it wants one. You snort softly, but then the candle nearest the tin flickers hard. Goosebumps. Someone pushes the tin gently forward. Offer the spirit a selection, the medium intones. You do. For a moment, nothing happens. Then a biscuit wobbles, just slightly. It's probably just the floorboards. Probably. Later, long after the candles have burned low and the air has filled with the delicate musk of disappointed ghosts, you sit in the library alone. The others have gone to bed. their footsteps echoing upstairs. You're too wired, or maybe too unsure, to sleep, so you crack the tin, one more biscuit, just for comfort. Outside, the wind picks up. Inside, somewhere just behind your shoulder, a breath. You don't look. You chew slowly. You're starting to understand why they always packed biscuits. You wake up the next morning with a stiff neck and a biscuit crumb stuck to your cheek. The fire in the hearth has long gone out, and your candle stub is just a wax puddle. Ghost hunting, as it turns out, involves a lot more sitting around than actual ghosting, and a lot more biscuits. The tin is still on the table, lid askew. 3 biscuits remain, down from 11 the night before. You pause. There were 5 of you in that séance room, and no one else was snacking. You decide not to overthink it. Stepping out into the fog-drenched morning, you begin your walk back to the station. Your boots make that soft, wet crunch against the pebbled lane. In your coat pocket, the biscuit tin bumps rhythmically against your hip. It's become something of a talisman by now. You're not alone, historically speaking. During the height of the Victorian biscuit boom, just about everyone carried a tin. Explorers crossing Africa, governesses enduring long train rides, invalids at the seaside, and yes, amateur ghost hunters traipsing across moors in search of moaning maids and glowing monks. The mid-19th century saw an explosion of biscuit innovation. New recipes, new shapes, and tins so decorative they were practically furniture. It all started, more or less, with the Industrial Revolution. As factories ramped up, biscuits became easier to mass-produce, package, and ship. Suddenly, biscuits weren't just homemade treats. They were durable, portable food for the age of steam. You could stuff them in a carpet bag, pack them for a cross-country séance tour, or offer one to a peckish poltergeist at 3 a.m. in Dover. One company, Huntley and Palmer's, made such a name for itself that their tins ended up in the Arctic, the trenches of World War I, and even the Egyptian tombs of 20th century archaeologists. If ghosts haunted those tins, they probably carried the taste of lemon creams and imperial oats. What's more, biscuits weren't just for the living. Victorians, in their strangely cheerful obsession with death, also buried their dead with food, biscuits included. Some spiritualists believed that souls enjoyed familiar tastes even after passing on, and that a particularly cherished biscuit could lure them back to the material plane, like bait for ghosts. Historians still argue whether this belief was sincere or just a poetic flourish during elaborate mourning rituals. But there are documented cases of séance goers placing a single gingerbread button at the center of the table to please the spirit. You imagine a ghost squinting suspiciously at the offering and whispering, "Where's the jammy dodger?" In society, parlors across Britain, the biscuit became more than just a snack. It was a signal of refinement, of preparation, of knowing your place. You didn't just attend a séance with crumbs in your pocket. You brought a tin, something with elegance, roses embossed in tin plate, gold script, maybe a hinged lid that clicked shut with a satisfying snap. You picture yourself back in London now, browsing the aisles of a biscuit shop before a séance. Clerks in striped aprons recommend their most spirit-sensitive selections. You ask which pairs best with disembodied whispers. For ghostly knocks, a digestive, they say solemnly. For full-bodied apparitions, bourbon cream. There's a faint humor in all this, of course, but that was the strange genius of the Victorians. They never saw a contradiction in mixing the serious with the absurd. They could weep over a lost sibling one minute and discuss biscuit pairings for necromantic tea parties the next. It was all part of the same culture, one foot in mourning, the other in marmalade. You reach the station, the platform mostly empty. A conductor eyes your tin suspiciously. Maybe he's had a biscuit stolen by a ghost before. You board the train, settle into the window seat, and open the tin again. One remaining ginger nut. You eat it slowly, watching the fog roll past fields stitched with hedgerows and the occasional startled sheep. Somewhere out there, beyond the hills, the cathedrals, and the seaside towns, is another ghost hunter with a biscuit tin just like yours. Maybe they're in a crumbling theater, or a boarded-up pub in Sheffield, or beneath the vaults of a craggy Scottish abbey, and they're doing the same thing as you, waiting for a sign, listening for whispers, and nibbling a stale custard cream for courage. The funny thing is, most séances were dull, uneventful. No rattling chains, no headless monks, just people sitting around in the dark, trying not to sneeze. That's where the biscuits came in. They were a buffer, a snacky intermission in case the spirits ran late. They also gave people something to do with their hands. Holding a biscuit meant you weren't just sitting nervously in the dark, you were participating, ready, alert, prepared to dunk should the tea come out, or to offer one to the medium if he started looking faint from all that humming. You're halfway home now, the train swaying gently. The tin rattles beside you, empty but still dignified. You glance at it fondly. It's more than a container. It's a ritual object now, a tiny shrine to calm in the face of the unknown. If anyone asks why Victorian ghost hunters always packed biscuits, you now have a few solid reasons. But deep down, you also know it's about something harder to explain. That strange, quiet comfort you feel when you're in a dusty room surrounded by whispering strangers and flickering candlelight, and suddenly, your fingers brush a familiar, crunchy shape. You smile. Your stop is coming up and you'll be needing more biscuits.